I'd like to see Jordan. I'd like to see Egypt take some look. The Gaza thing has not worked. It's never worked. And I feel very differently about Gaza than a lot of people. I think they should get a good, fresh, beautiful piece of land, and we get some people to put up the money to build it and make it nice and make it habitable. I don't know how they could want to stay. It's a demolition site.
Wouldn't that amount to forcibly displacing those people from Gaza?
I don't think so. I think if they had the opportunity, they'd love it. If they had an alternative to Gaza, they have no alternative right now. I mean, they're there because they have no alternative. What do they have? It is a big pile of rubble right now. I mean, have you seen the pictures of it? Have you been there? It's terrible to live. Who can live like that? And very dangerous. There's shooting all over the place. There's bombing all over the place on both sides. No, I would think if they had an option of moving to an area, either in a large group or various smaller groups, and take care of the close to 2 million people, I would think that they would be thrilled to do. The U.S. will take over the Gaza Strip, and we will do a job with it too. We'll own it and be responsible for dismantling all of the dangerous unexploded bombs and other weapons on the site, level the site and get rid of the destroyed buildings, level it out, create an economic development that will supply unlimited numbers of jobs and housing for the people of the area.
He sees a different future for that piece of land that has been the focus of so much terrorism, so many attacks against us, so many trials and so many tribulations. He has a different idea, and I think it's worth paying attention to this. We're talking about it. He's exploring it with his people, with his staff. I think it's something that could change history.
So what he's very generously has offered is the ability of the United States to go in and help with debris removal, help with munitions removal, help with reconstruction, the rebuilding of homes and businesses and things of this nature, so that then people can move back in. But in the meantime, they'll have to live somewhere. Now, the details of that, if it was accepted, would have to be worked out among multiple partner nations. It's a unique offer, one that no other country in the world has stepped up and made an offer. But I think it's one people need to think about. Seriously, it was not meant as a hostile move. It was meant as I think a very generous move, the offer to rebuild and to be in charge of the rebuilding of a place, many parts of which right now, even if people move back, they would have nowhere to live safely because there are still unexploded munitions and debris and rubble.
You guys, I don't know what's really going on with this, but a lot of Ghazians are saying, a lot of Palestinians are saying that they're not leaving the Gaza Strip. And I commend them for that. And for Trump to say that they can go somewhere else or that they can just leave and then the U.S. will take over, that is kind of rude to say, because they're not going to leave their land and then the next day you're going to backtrack. I'm literally confused. So are you or are you not going to send troops there to claim the land, rebuild it, or what? But we'll see in the future.
I don't want to be cute. I don't want to be a wise guy, but the Riviera of the Middle East, this could be something that could be so bad. This could be so magnificent.
He understands that Dubai is the Riviera of the Middle East, right? But yeah, this is coming from a guy who built a bunch of casinos in Atlantic City thinking that was going to be like Las Vegas 2.0. So Las Vegas, Atlantic City, Dubai, Gaza Strip. Makes perfect sense.
Listening to Donald Trump just say that Palestine, the Gaza Strip, should not be rebuilt and should not have the people who live there and the people who died there should not go back there because of the death and suffering. They should go to other countries, maybe 3 or 4 other countries will accept them. This is the same man that's out here telling immigrants to get out of his country. But then he's telling Palestinians and the people who belong to the Gaza Strip that they should go to someone else's country, and that someone else, 3 or 4 countries, should let them in, while the Gaza Strip should not be rebuilt. So who should live there, Donald?
Hey, remember all those people during the election who were really, really angry at Joe Biden because they thought he wasn't doing enough to help the Palestinians in Gaza? And they were going to send a message with their vote by either not voting at all or voting for a third-party candidate like Jill Stein instead of supporting Kamala Harris, or the stupidest thing they did was to actually support Donald Trump. Remember Muslims for Trump? All those people up in Michigan and the Dearborn area who supported Donald Trump to send a message. Well, how about this headline? This is in Reuters just now. Palestinians have no alternative but to leave Gaza. You know who said that? Donald Trump. U.S. President Donald Trump said on Tuesday that Palestinians have no alternative but to leave Gaza, and he would like to see neighboring countries, Jordan and Egypt, take the displaced Palestinians. So what do you geniuses think now? Idiots.
Donald Trump just proposed that the U.S. take over Gaza and apparently take it as a territory. This is kind of crazy stuff here. So Trump at a press conference with Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu tonight said the following: the U.S. will take over the Gaza Strip. He's not even proposing it. He's ordering it. Will own it and be responsible for dismantling all of the dangerous unexploded bombs and other weapons on the site. That's nice, so our troops can get hurt doing this. Level the site and get rid of the destroyed buildings. He then was asked more about it. Everybody loves the idea of the United States owning that piece of land. So he's talking about us literally taking it for ourselves. Guys, who are we? What country are we anymore? We're going around the world just grabbing land. Like we're going to take Greenland and away from Denmark and go to war with them. And now we're going to grab a chunk of land in the Middle East that, by the way, there's 2 billion people who live there right now. 2 million people. Like it's their land. Why the hell do we get off taking their land? Also, Israel has had a hard enough time in a year and a half trying to root out the terrorists that run that place. It's a terrorist group, Hamas, that runs that territory, right? The Gaza. We're going to send our troops now and not just beat the terrorists, but kick them out and kick everybody else out. You think that's going to be done safely? You don't think our troops are going to get hurt doing that? We're going to be in an all-out war trying to pull that off. I thought this was the guy who was ending all wars, except now we're going to war with Greenland and with Denmark and with Gaza and with Panama and with Canada and Mexico, and it just doesn't really stop, does it? Yeah, lots of promises. 2 weeks in, by the way, we're already this kind of garbage.
To the people that decided not to vote for Kamala Harris because of Gaza, let me ask you, was it worth it? Was it worth it withholding your vote so that Trump could be elected? Trump just announced that he wants all the people from Gaza to leave, all the Palestinians to leave. And when he said that, who was right beside him? Netanyahu. He was more than happy and smiling. All sunshine and rainbows between those two. You could have had Kamala Harris, who through the Joe Biden administration was somehow restraining Netanyahu. But now, with Trump, everything's loose. Now Netanyahu can do whatever he wants. Israel can continue their ethnic cleansing of Gaza. So I ask you again, was it worth it? Honestly, my heart goes out to the people of Gaza. But honestly, I don't care for the people in the United States that could have voted to prevent this. This is on you.
Trump's got cold feet. The Trump administration is already trying to walk back what Trump said yesterday. Trump's plan to ethnically cleanse Gaza has caused shockwaves around the world. But one thing in particular would have made Trump extremely nervous, and it's this statement from Saudi Arabia. It says that Saudi Arabia rejects ethnically cleansing the Palestinians from their land, and also states that there is no normalization deal with Israel without the state of Palestine. Remember that this is the deal that the US and Israel have been so thirsty for so long. It is also the deal that was thwarted by Hamas on October the 7th. Listen to Netanyahu basically saying this at his September speech at the UN.
Of a historic reconciliation between Arab and Jew. In the days that followed that speech, the blessing I spoke of came into sharper focus. A normalization deal between Saudi Arabia and Israel seemed closer than ever. But then came the curse of October 7th.
And there you have it. That has in fact been the goal all this time. Many US presidents have tried and failed to achieve a normalization deal between Saudi Arabia and Israel for decades. This is the big prize for Trump, his legacy that could potentially lead to a Nobel Peace Prize, which he so desires. What Trump blurted out yesterday put this legacy-building moment at risk. He's not going to invade Gaza. He's not going to build a Mar-a-Lago 2.0 on there. These are all just words. The Palestinian people are not going anywhere. It's time for the US and Israel to pay their dues. No more running away from accountability. It's time for the world to stand up for justice.
Okay, last thing about this press conference with President Donald Trump and Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. First and foremost, what President Donald Trump said regarding Gaza was insane. How he said that, of course, Gazans wouldn't want to come back to Gaza. It's blown to smithereens. Like, there's nothing there. It looks terrible. You even heard the reporter screaming like, yeah, because y'all blew it up. By y'all, I mean Israel. Y'all, Netanyahu was right there. He was like, yeah, they shouldn't want to come back. We'll find some space for them in Iran, not Iran, excuse me, Jordan, Egypt, somewhere we'll build a nice town, nice community where they'll want to live. Then he gonna say, he said, I've seen every picture from every angle. Better than if I would have been there myself. I know there are high quality pictures that can capture aerial photos that, you may not be able to see if you go there. But to say pictures look better than if you would go and see the rubble and destruction firsthand, that was wild, DT. And then how are you going to say you're going to build Gaza up to be an incredibly nice place, but then also tell Gazans they don't want to come back due to it being destroyed? What sense does that make? And the whole time he's saying this, Netanyahu's just sitting there like, that's my boy. Get him, DT. Tell him. Tell him. Just imagine you're the leader of a country that wants a piece of an area. You blow it to smithereens and then tell the people who were living there while you were blowing it up saying, yeah, you don't want to come back here. It's disgusting. It's destroyed. This is all rubble. There's nothing here. But then also a leader of another powerful country is saying, yeah, they shouldn't want to live here, but we're going to build some beautiful homes, a beautiful place where people can come visit from all across the world, but they can't live there no more. That probably was the wildest part of this whole press conference. They kind of held two, one first after the meeting in the Oval Office, and then the other one was an actual press conference where they were standing up behind podiums answering questions. But whew, I understand Israel's one of our strongest allies as far as loyalty goes, but I do not know what Israel has for us. I know they're our strongest partners in the Middle East, but I do not know what tethers us to them. That one, Netanyahu is the first world leader to come to America during Trump's current term. But what is it about this relationship where we are so tied as if we don't have this relationship with Israel, what happens? Like, why is this shit so, I don't know, like, why does it seem like we have to have this relationship in order to thrive or strive as a country? I don't get it. But I'm not going to lie. Regardless of how you feel about the Palestinian/Israel conflict, whatever you want to call it, that press conference, that was nasty work. Can't even cap you down.
I'm not trying to be hyperbolic when I say this. The next 9/11 is being planned as we speak. Thanks to Donald Trump at his press conference today with Benjamin Netanyahu, where he said that the United States is going to take over Gaza. They're going to level it, clear it out. The Palestinian people are not allowed to go back, and they're going to turn it into the Riviera of the Middle East. And he's willing to use United States troops to do so. Al-Qaeda, ISIS, terrorist groups are planning the next 9/11. Thanks to Donald Trump today. Palestinian people are going to suffer. Millions of people are not allowed to return to their homes. And to all of you super leftists who stayed home on election day or voted third party, this is your fucking fault. We told you so.
More of Donald Trump supporters are turning on him after last night's Gaza announcement, and this has been a recurring theme since he took office, as he has broken promise after promise. And last night was a big one, that we would stop nation building, that we would stop helping countries around the world and focus here on America. But last night, Donald Trump said, no, actually, we're going to go ahead and build the Riviera of the Middle East for the people there and create jobs for the people there. Listen to what one podcaster had to say who supports Trump.
We're supposed to put America first, and now you want to deploy troops?
Yeah, this is the very things Donald Trump campaigned on. He is now going back on, wants to deploy troops elsewhere, wants the nation build. And meanwhile, the people of America are the ones who he is completely ignoring. Now, we would tell you, we told you so, but I don't think we have to do that. I think that speaks for itself. That doesn't need to be said, but you are certainly, more and more of you every day are joining the find out phase, and I welcome you to it.
Donald Trump last night openly and publicly called for the mass expulsion, ethnic cleansing, of Palestinians from Gaza. This is not surprising, but it is still heartbreaking that he would do this as openly, honestly, and clearly as he is. And don't mince words on this. He's not trying to relocate. He's not trying to rebuild. He's ethnically cleansing. That is both a domestic crime and an international crime. Donald Trump just admitted to being a war criminal. And so ultimately, he does have the huge force of the U.S. military behind him to do this in evil act. I want to remind everyone who is either in the military or knows someone who's in the military, if you are given an order to do something that is illegal or has the chance to be illegal, you have the right to question that order, at least within military court. We all universally have a moral obligation to stop ethnic cleansing in every single way we can. Don't allow them to do it again.
I know some people probably don't want to hear this, but Trump isn't proposing anything new when it comes to the forced displacement of Palestinian people. Wait. People are rightfully disgusted by Trump's proposal to displace Palestinians to neighboring Arab countries and his plan for the U.S. to take part in the rebuilding of Gaza. Some argue that Arab and Muslim voters who make up a small share of the electorate are now effing around and finding out. But if we take a closer look, Trump isn't introducing anything new. He's simply continuing U.S. foreign policy. Trigger warning, we will be examining the facts. I know that can be difficult for some of us, so let's just break it down. What was actually proposed, what it means, and who is behind it. Let's just start with the Biden and Harris administration. Get it out the way. In the early weeks of the genocide, the Biden administration pushed for Egypt and Jordan to accept Palestinian refugees. They pressured Egypt to support a mass exodus from Gaza, but Egypt refused. As part of a $105 billion aid package, the administration requested funding for the potential needs of Gazans fleeing to neighboring countries, which essentially just means mass displacement. And why were Palestinians fleeing in the first place? Well, because they were being bombarded with U.S.-made weapons. Biden's plans included tent cities in Egypt, which would eventually become permanent settlements that were funded by the state of Israel, a buffer zone in Egypt to prevent displaced Palestinians from returning to Gaza. Both Egypt and Jordan rejected these proposals, standing firm against forced displacement. Protests erupted across the globe, demanding an independent Palestinian state instead of mass displacement. At the same time, Biden's team positioned the U.S. for heavy involvement in post-war Gaza, because it's a genocide. According to Politico, the administration considered appointing a U.S. official as a top civilian advisor after a ceasefire. The U.S. planned to install a director general to coordinate with Israel, train local forces, and provide intelligence support, essentially ensuring that any governance would still be under U.S. and Israeli influence. Now, let's turn to the administration that's actually currently in power. Trump is demanding Egypt and Jordan accept a mass exodus of Palestinians. Just like before, these countries refused, instead calling for an independent Palestinian state. Just like before, Trump is also pushing for U.S. involvement in the rebuilding of Gaza if the ceasefire holds. According to NPR, Trump stated during a White House press conference with Netanyahu, the U.S. will take over the Gaza Strip. However, he provided no specifics on how this would be executed. His proposals have been met with fierce resistance from Arab and Palestinian leaders who have long saw Gaza and the West Bank as a foundation for the Palestinian state. Protests have already erupted in Washington, D.C., with more expected to take place. After looking beyond the headlines, one thing is clear. Trump is continuing an existing U.S. policy. For Palestinians, his comments are just business as usual, and they will continue to fight against mass displacement. But here's what no one is really talking about. This isn't just a Biden-Harris or Trump-Vance policy. This is a U.S. foreign policy. The playbook remains the same: bomb, starve, and demolish nations, and then push for mass displacement. If displacement succeeds, the U.S. swoops in to rebuild the very places they destroyed in the first place, patting themselves on the back as the so-called heroes. Trump's plan is a continuation of U.S. policy, and it will be met with resistance and disgust, as it should be.
Let's try this again. 1.8 million.
Ultimately be occupied by the 1.8 million Palestinians living in Gaza.
Only about 25,000 evacuated. There were 2.3 million.
The fact that Trump just came out of this press conference with Netanyahu, who literally has warrants out for his arrest right now, just to say that the U.S. will be taking over the Gaza Strip, his words, literally, it was completely predictable. It was completely predictable because the U.S. has supplied 70% of the weapons used against Palestinians, supplied to by Israel since October 7th. And overall, the U.S. supplies, I think, about like 67% of all weapons that Israel uses. So this was completely predictable because everything happening in Palestine right now was basically a proxy war, not initiated, but funded by the U.S. So the fact that now we're getting a more explicit political involvement in Gaza, in the economic rehabilitation of the Gaza Strip, and in the West Bank is very predictable because we were funding it this whole time.
The U.S. is not buying Gaza. You guys just don't understand that Trump knows how to play the long game. When Trump said we are going to own Gaza, what he was saying is we are going to own the responsibility of what happened there, and we are going to step in to fix it since no one else seems to be stepping in. And you do not get to make the we don't need to stick our nose in other people's business argument if you were one of the ones that was on this app crying 6 months ago because you were begging someone to help them. The reason that Trump is even putting buying Gaza on the table is because Netanyahu does not want to end the ceasefire. He doesn't want to pull his troops out of Gaza, and he does not want to release the hostages. So what he did is he brought Netanyahu on national TV and threatened to buy Gaza from him if he is not going to do what he promised. Biden knew what he was doing when he arranged a temporary ceasefire that expired 2 months into Trump's presidency. He was kicking the can down the road. He wanted to make that Trump's problem, so now you can all blame everything that goes on Trump. But Trump doesn't play that game. Trump is a businessman. Trump knows how to make deals. Evidently, somewhere in that conversation with Netanyahu, he realized that Netanyahu doesn't want to make a deal. So what he did is he brought Netanyahu on national TV and he exposed his hand. But honestly, I don't even know why I'm making this argument because it is obvious that some of you guys are so desperate to hate Trump that even if he accomplished something crazy like world peace, y'all would never give him credit. But at the very least, can we please just stop misinterpreting everything that he says? Like, y'all do remember that before we had critical race theory, there was a thing called critical thinking, right?
We have breaking news. The White House has confirmed there will not be boots on the ground in Gaza. However, there was something that kind of alarmed me when Caroline Leavitt, the press secretary that was speaking on behalf of Donald Trump, there's something she said that kind of like startled me. There will not be boots on the ground as of yet, as if there's a possibility. If there is a possibility, that's wrong. Because I can't go back to the days where the Republican Party uses taxpayer money to invade the Middle East. We're not neocons. We're MAGA, which means we voted for world peace. So hopefully Donald Trump is just using his words to threaten the horrible people that are in Gaza. You know, not the good people. I think we could both agree that, you know, there's good people and bad people over there. So hopefully the horrible people that are in Gaza kind of take the hint from Donald Trump and they're kind of getting kicked to the curb and they have to permanently find somewhere else to live. I don't know. We'll see what happens, but one thing I do know is Donald Trump, his leadership is peace through strength, and he's being strong in this moment. Just don't put any money towards it. I'm not for that.
In what is perhaps the most shocking declaration of all since Donald Trump has taken office occurred this afternoon when he met with Benjamin Netanyahu, the Prime Minister of Israel, in D.C. He's stated that America is going to take over Gaza. Palestinians cannot return to their homes. He says, as a matter of fact, he doesn't even think they want to return to their homes. They need to go find nice homes elsewhere. And he says, and he doesn't think that they're going to give him any pushback. America is going to take over Gaza and rebuild it. And he says it's going to become the Riviera of the Middle East. And when asked who will inhabit Gaza, he said, the world's people. People from all over the world. This doesn't even sound like a concept of a plan. It sounds like sugarcoating ethnic cleansing, nothing more, nothing less, with absolutely no plan. When a reporter asked, how many people do you plan to remove from Gaza? He said, all of them. All of them. And they'll be happy about it. I don't have any analysis for you, other than to say this is absurd and cruel, and it lacks any basis in reality whatsoever. He just expects the neighboring countries to absorb nearly 2 million people with no pushback whatsoever, no problem. And now the United States is going to own Gaza, take over Gaza, and he says he will use the U.S. military if necessary.